if you wish, is send you a link to the recording so that you can pass that around your organization if you feel, or your team, if you wanted to discuss some of the issues and answers that John's going to pass by us. Phew. So onto the topic then. Business recovery after COVID is quite a challenge. It's been a world crisis which has shaken us all tremendously. We all know people who have suffered. We are all probably closely linked and may well have suffered quite significantly ourselves. And I was talking to an international accreditation organization, education organization, back in April, who said they thought a lot of staff coming back will probably have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. I thought, wow, that's a bit of an extreme claim, but I think they're probably right. There will be a lot of underlying issues. So as we recover the business, we need to recover our people to recover the business. And that's why I'm really privileged to introduce John to you. So John Earls and I have been working together recently, and John is an ex-corporate lawyer and has moved from that field into the field of scientific research on the topic of well-being. So I'm going to hand over to John, get started immediately. Thank you very much, and send chat and waves anytime, and then I'll respond to you. So thanks again, and thanks for joining us, John.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. I'm just going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if I can get this working okay. Mark, you could maybe let me know once it's up. And let's just see if we can get this into a presentation view for everybody. There we go. So, good morning, and hope that everybody's okay. So, thanks for Mark introducing us, and thank you for you all coming. So, this is a session discussing mindfulness business recovery, and I think that the title is useful because mindfulness, business, and recovery, I think, are three areas that I want to cover today. Mindfulness in this context is going to cover a multitude of things, and I think that we all have connotations when we attach to the word mindfulness. In this session, what mindfulness means is the ability to connect with ourselves, with our emotions and our feelings, and to connect with our teams and our companies. Business is the workplace that you work in, you know, the way you go each day, what you do from 9 to 5. The people that you spend most of your life with, and recovery. Well, how do we go, like Mark said, from this you know, completely unique situation that we're in with COVID? How do we go from what that's done to our workplaces, our businesses, into the future, and into the future in a very positive way? Mindfulness business recovery, therefore, is looking at how those three elements can work together to make your businesses thrive and survive when you come through this period of, well, very big change. So a little bit about the context here. So we're in this very highly challenging, highly stressed, highly restrictive environment, in the sense that, you know, there isn't as much money around as maybe there has been. Maybe contracts have been lost, clients haven't got the money to make payments, staff are feeling worried, staff are feeling stressed. Maybe business plans have changed. Maybe you're not sure about what the future for your businesses or for yourselves are like. So this webinar is designed particularly to promote skills that are going to help you with that. So burnout is a massive issue. We're going to be looking at burnout later on in the slides. But burnout is a main cause of a lot of stress in the workplace. Often people don't realise that they're stressed. This situation that we're in at the moment with COVID has had higher than ever record numbers of stress-related mental problems, mental health issues, and problems in the workplace, problems with teams and problems with managers. So it's key that we look at things like burnout and how that's impacting businesses and moving forwards. It's also important to understand how things like mindfulness can help us not only reduce our stress, reduce our burnout rates, but also how mindfulness can help us start to embody the skills and the feelings and all the assets that we want to bring into the workplace to help our staff feel happy, feel safe. How can mindfulness do that? Well, it does that in a multitude of ways, and we're going to cover that here. There's one last thing just to cover in the context. We talk about a well-being culture, or having well-being in the workplace. And I think that most of us, when I say most of us, most people who are running organizations want to have well-being, and maybe do have well-being. But what we're trying to get across in this webinar is how important it is to have intentional, authentic well-being. And what that means is well-being that's coming from inside out. So the people who run these organizations, who manage staff, who work in teams, that they feel compassion, they feel close, they feel like they want to care and support the staff. How do you go about engendering that type of experience for each and every one of the people who work for you, from the top layers of management all the way down to the people who are on the front line? So that's a little bit of the context. But before we move forward and we get into the formal presentation, let's just take a second, just if you can, if you're sitting down, great, just take yourself back into your chairs. If you're standing, that's fine as well. Just get yourself into a comfortable spot where you don't feel that you need to move too much. And I just simply want you to take 10 deep breaths. You don't have to close your eyes, but my eyes always want to close. And just try to be as still as you can. I mean, try not to move around too much. And try to breathe as deeply as you can into your body. Try to breathe in and out through your nose for the last 5 breaths. And notice what a big difference that makes to slowing down your breathing. Just 3 more. And 2 more. And last one. Okay, great. I always smile after I do that because I always feel so positive. I hope you do too. And why did we do that? Well, there was a reason, not just because I was nervous before doing this presentation, which I was, but evidence has shown that doing a very small exercise in stillness, which is bringing in awareness and attention to how we're feeling, and slowing down our breath and slowing down the movements within our body, not only helps lower stress levels by up to 40%, but what it also does, it helps your concentration. So everyone's had a busy morning, everyone's thinking about lunch, there's lots to concentrate on, with these subjects. So it's just an opportunity to get ourselves a little bit more focused and relaxed. Okay, so myself, I did an MSc in Mindfulness and Compassion, a master's degree, essentially psychology. And I'm currently doing a PhD at Warwick University. So the PhD is aimed at using mindfulness in yoga. So MBSR, if you know what MBSR is, it's mindfulness-based stress reduction. When people talk about mindfulness, that's what really they're referring to, is this MBSR. So it's how to use mindfulness and yoga to reduce burnout in the workplace. So that's what my PhD is in. I've been a mindfulness teacher for 6 years. I practice mindfulness myself. Regularly I have my own practice. I've worked with many companies over the last 15 years. I've been a corporate lawyer previously. I was in the head of departments, then ran a department with another manager before leaving to set up my own company. So I ran a successful company for 3 years and sold that business. Then I opened a fintech business and work in consultancy with a company who sells software and case management tools. So what I'm saying is that I'm very much invested in the business market, come from the corporate world, but I had a specific journey. So I was a corporate lawyer for many years, and selling a business and buying, another business, investing in various things, working in law comes with a high level of stress, and I was very stressed. I ended up being burned out myself, so I ended up in a state where I couldn't function. And I needed to function because I needed to pay my bills, and my company was going to go under if I didn't. So I had big pressures. And my then wife introduced mindfulness to me, and I thought, well, mindfulness, I'm not going to do mindfulness. How is that going to help me? Well, within a week, I would say that I noticed big differences. Within a month, I was noticing real change. I'm not saying that it was the be all and end all. I mean, there was a lot of other things that happened, and a lot of other things going on in my life, but it was a massive change. It reduced my stress levels in conjunction with yoga. So I also went to do yoga at that time, and the yoga released physical stress. So whereas mindfulness seemed to work with the mental side of things, yoga worked with the physical stress. The combination of the two was a holistic recovery program, I would say, where I was completely recovered. I would say that there were still issues I needed to deal with. There was, I went to speak to business coaching and get further advice about how to manage my business better. So I took, steps which we're going to cover in here, and why that's important too. But it was the mindfulness and yoga that brought me into a state of calm, and allowed me to start to connect with how I felt. So that's my journey, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Okay, so let's move away from me for a moment. These are the subjects that we're going to cover today. Workplace culture, burnout, mindful leaders, and intentional well-being. Just have a second then to have a look at those. Workplace culture, burnout, mindful leaders, and intentional well-being. Each one of these is a subject that Goodfoot believes in, believes that that needs to be addressed, needs to be considered if you're going to get out of this COVID situation into a stronger position within the business. So they all are very, very important. Let's do them in turn. So let's look at workplace culture. If you can use your chat functions, which I saw that you can, which is great. When I first did Zoom, I'm sure it's not your first time doing Zoom, but when I first did Zoom, I had no idea what the chat function was. People were talking about breakout rooms. I was thinking we're going to have to leave the room and come back in. So anyway, I'm rambling on. The 6 essential elements of a workplace culture. I would like you to have a think about that. And if you don't mind using the chat function, just write down what you think any one of them could be. If you think you know all 6, please just put down all 6. And there's no prizes. I mean, I'll be impressed. But if you can have a go, that'd be really great. It'd be interesting to see what you think as essential elements of workplace culture are. I'll just give you 60 seconds or so. I can hear tapping.
So, John, I'll help break the silence. We'll read out a few as they're coming through. Got good communication, diversity, inclusion from John. Claire, openness, honesty, and trust. Thank you for that. Communication from Emma. Work-life balance from Lydia. Lydia, thank you for that one. Empathy and listening. Yeah, that's custom, practice, policies and procedures. Hierarchy from Malcolm. Communication again. Honesty, trust is mentioned again. Adaptability, inclusivity from Ashley. Again, the word communication. Transparency, I like that one from Natasha. Oh, from David, this is great. Compassionate leadership.
Oh, like it, David, like it. I'm really liking that one.
John, thank you. Shared accountability from John.
All right, so shall we have a look at what the first one that this company's come up with? So the Tanner report was quite interesting. So the Tanner report was like a cultural report. It looked at lots of things. I mean, there's lots of different Tanner reports, but this particular one was interesting because the Stevenson report of about 2 or 3 years ago looked at, you know, well-being in the workplace and opportunities for people to, for businesses to grow. And they identified well-being as being a massive one. And they were saying to develop well-being, you have to develop a culture. You have to develop a team, a culture. You have to, an identity, I suppose, is what they were trying to get at. And this Tanner report said, well, yeah, we agree with all that. And these are the ones that we come up with. So the first one they came up with is opportunity. So what they were saying is opportunity for success, opportunity for growth, opportunity for self-expression, opportunity to be yourself in a workplace. And I just want you to take for a second and just think about what opportunity means to you. You know, if someone was to say, I want opportunity in workplace, I mean, my mind goes to, you know, promotion and maybe getting more wages maybe or something. But they were saying number one on that list was opportunity for growth, so for further training, to develop personally. And I think that's another important point, is personal growth, opportunity for personal growth. If you've got any comments, you know, if you think, oh yeah, that sounds like a great one, you know, I haven't considered that one, you know, it'd be great to hear from you. Just drop a message, or if you think that's, oh, I wouldn't put that one in, yeah, let us know as well. As I said, this isn't coming from me, you know, I'm just putting it out there before you say, you know, John's off on a tangent again. But it would be interesting to know your thoughts on these. Success. Now, this one I really like. Why? Because I'm a driven guy, you know, I focus on success. But you want to be in a workplace that's successful, don't you? You want your business to be doing well. If your business is doing well, guess what? You're going to have less stress because things are going well. You're going to be more positive. Success could be on an individual level as well. Developing a culture of success on an individual, on a company level. And also, I think it's very important to talk about success. As a business, we need to be talking about these things. Wow, guys, we're part of the best company ever. Let people know, because it has a direct impact. That Stevenson report, along with Tanner, along with the Jefferson report, these all talked about people feel happier at work if they're part of a company that's doing well, that talks about how well they're doing, because they feel like they're doing well themselves. So that's important, developing culture of success. I think this came up, you know, in a couple of your comments, appreciation, you know, transparency, appreciation, feedback. I think it's really important. Look, you might appreciate someone, but how often do you let them know at work? And I think that's very important. That can be done in a number of ways, you know. It doesn't just have to be face-to-face. It can be done, you know, in terms of reports and things as well. You know, I worked for a company once where they sent, you know, a weekly reports, and they was just, you know, it had, John, we really appreciate it. You've done so well this week, and you know, and here's all the things that you've done. And I was like, wow, did I do all that in this week? And then obviously that was good for them, because they were limiting the time that they were spending, you know, doing all of these contacts with their staff, because they had hundreds of staff, but they were actually making sure all their staff were contacted. So that was a nice idea, I thought. Well-being. What's well-being? That's a huge concept, isn't it? What's well-being? But I think in terms of these reports, what they were saying is coming from an intentional place of care, kindness, trying to develop happiness, wanting your staff to be well and to be happy, and not just wanting these things, but putting the measures in place to make that possible. Purpose. Why are we going to work? It sounds obvious, doesn't it? Purpose. But you know, what is my job? What is my role? Sometimes, you know, I remember asking somebody that worked for me a few years ago, you know, what do you think of your job? And they're like, yeah, it's great. Why do you do the emails and stuff I ask you to do? And they were very much like, well, because you tell me to. I was like, well, no, that's not the point. The point is that you've got to, you know, you're very important, because without your emails, you're not going to get the business in that I need you to. And they started to feel happier and better. So purpose is important. And leadership, I think that was mentioned as well in some of those comments, but leadership is an important one. And leadership, what type of leader do you want to be? We'll talk a little bit towards the end about mindful leaders. And for me, that's I know from experience, that's who I respond better to, a mindful leader. All right. Thank you for bearing with me on that. I know I was rabbiting on.
I could just
Yeah.
just drop back a slide, John, if that's
Yeah,
okay. So I just wanted a comment from Lydia
Yeah.
on the success box. Thank you, Lydia, for that point. Lydia's saying that a positive attitude, talking about success, is infectious. It actually provides an energy for people to want to do more. And there's one thing I found working with managers over such a long period, nothing's really changed in the arena of the reluctance by many to say thank you, and the reluctance to celebrate the success of other people. It's usually down to huge amounts of workload, and therefore little time. But I think Lydia's 100% right on that, in terms of getting greater success out of the success that's happening already.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia. Really lovely comments. Right, moving into burnout. Right, guys, burnout. Let me give you a bit of context. Burnout has never clearly been defined. There's no definitive version of burnout. I was going to say mind out then. Burnout. No definitive version. However, we've all got an idea in our head, don't we, of what burnout is. To give you a general context, burnout is the end of the stress spectrum. So if you think of stress as being a spectrum of colours, you know, day one, you might be, you know, a little bit stressed, a bit of anxiety, you've got a presentation to do, but then it goes, you come to the end of the day, you're with your son, you know, reading your books and everything's great and the stress goes down. And, well, imagine burnout is this build-up, this continual stress that doesn't just stop on day one, that it continues until you get to the end of the stress spectrum, and then you enter a burnout spectrum. So you could go from like blue, green, yellow, red, and dark red, purple, black. So that's a little bit of context about burnout, stress related. What's stress? I mean, we could go on for hours about all this, but I wanted you to just have a think. What would you think of as the 3 core elements of burnout? So yes, these aren't definitive, but the experts, Maslach and Jackson, if you're interested to look them up, they're the leading expert in workplace burnout. Maslach and Jackson have identified 3 areas that they said over thousands and thousands of cases of research into burnout, that these 3 elements are usually always present. So again, use your chat functions. Be interesting to know what those 3 elements are from your point of view. You're going to be co-hosting again, Mark, with these comments coming in.
That's good. So thank you. Comment from Colin. Colin's observed in life, people on the road to burnout, often inability to make decisions, shortage, i.e. irrational or rational, inability to concentrate from David, short-tempered, losing the temper from Colin, uncertainty from Ashley, and exhaustion has been mentioned for that one. Sol, thank you for that. Signs of depression, Sleeping problems have been mentioned. Irritated, thank you, Natasha. Irritated, snappy, tired. So yeah, mood changes.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, and it's interesting for me because nearly everyone has centered on the most obvious points, and this is obviously where we go to straight away. So Maslach and Jackson say that there's 3 key elements. Emotional exhaustion is what a lot of you are describing. So that's where you're at the end of your emotional spectrum. You haven't got any emotions left really to deal with, even the more minor things. You can become depressed, you can become anxious. Someone might say, oh John, that cup of coffee didn't put enough milk in it. Oh, you blow up, you're irritable, angry, cry at the littlest things, difficulty concentrating because your mind's racing around. So everyone I think knows this one, and that's like I would say probably even the first symptoms that start to be presented, because it's very stress related. These other two are really interesting, particularly in the workplace. Avoidance is the second one that is noticed a lot by Maslach and Jackson. That is avoidance of the workplace. People suddenly don't want to go into work. They don't want to pick up the telephones. They don't want to look at emails. They don't want to be around people. They self-isolate. I mean, we can talk about self-isolation as well within COVID. People being isolation is a thing called isolation syndrome, and that raises depression levels. So can you imagine how you must feel if you self-isolate when you're feeling burned out?
John, sorry, could I pause in there? Because Karen's mentioned, to reinforce your point,
yeah.
Karen mentioned feeling detached from your job and the company, and Emma mentioned being distant. So this is the isolation element you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, no, brilliant points. Yeah, both of those, because they also touch into the last one, personal identification. What does that mean? It's a bit of a random academic sort of term, I think, but what they're getting at is that the people become detached, yes, from their workplace, but they also become detached from themselves. They lose sense of personal identity. They lose purpose with their life. Who am I? Where am I going? Why do I even want to continue? And that's why it's so important never to allow yourself to get to that stage. And it's a really important thing, and I'm sure that you all appreciate this. We often don't realize that we're stressed. We often don't realize that we're getting to that level of stress. If you realized you were getting towards burnout, you wouldn't burn out, would you? You'd stop. You'd take action. But that's the thing with stress, is it creeps up slowly. So a lot of burnout work surrounds teaching people how to recognize the signs of burnout, how to recognize the signs of stress, not just healthy stress, but stress that is built up to levels that is actually going to cause you problems, and then giving you the tools then to manage that stress, lower it, and prevent it. Stress is preventative, but it needs to be an intentional part of your work day and your strategy as a person going to work. I have a strategy each day. I wake up and do certain types of exercises and mindfulness practice to make sure that I'm focused at work and that I manage my stress, because I know that I won't if I don't do those practices. Okay, so we're going to move on to a practical exercise now. Hope you enjoy this, but just to let you know, there's a few trends that are going to be seen throughout 2020. Number one is stress. So it's the number one trend throughout the workplace is burnout. It's the thing that's on the tip of everyone's tongues. And this was probably exacerbated by the COVID situation, but even before COVID, it was up there. These are just a few reports and things. You can get a copy of the slides or the recording, so you can look at those. But this is just some interesting reports there. All right, guys. So let's do a little bit of a mindfulness exercise. Again, let's get ourselves back into that zone. We've got coming up to 15-20 minutes. So let's just take a moment then to refresh our minds, take ourselves into a calm place so that we can focus for the last few moments of this presentation. So get yourself comfortable, sit yourself down, or if you're standing, that's fine, but just make sure you're comfortable enough just to pause for the next 60 seconds. Try not to move at all, twitch, or jiggle, just calm down, settle down, and then we'll come back in a few seconds. Take a few deep breaths and take the time to feel the sensation of breath. So as you're breathing in, notice how the air smells. Notice if it's warm or cold. Notice the feeling of the air going down your throat into your lungs and filling your lungs up. Notice what's happening around you. birds in the distance, cars, sounds you can hear. I can hear my son in the background. It always brings a smile to my face. And then proceed with whatever you're doing, but proceed with whatever you're doing with clarity. So we're all thinking about this presentation, focusing. So let's open our eyes now and have that intention to really concentrate for these last few minutes. Why did I do that? There is context. There's an interesting study by I think it was a company called Athena. There's an American-based company, and it was about doing this particular stop exercise. They insisted that their staff did it 3 times per day, so they all had a stop moment. Literally, they would. I think they had screens, and they would flash up, and there'd be a noise. Everybody now stop. They had this, this exercise. They did it over a period of 3 months, I think, and they noticed stress levels dropping by 50%, increased productivity by well over 70%, and people's perceived levels of happiness went up by, I can't remember the figure, maybe 20. It was lower than the others, but the reason for that was that the study was ongoing, so they hadn't collected all their data. But if you look at those first 2 elements, by just introducing a simple practice of every day, guys, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, have a stop, and insisting people do it can be massively important. I know that when I do this exercise, I come back stronger, more concentrated, happier, and feeling better. So I'm far more productive. Anyway, that's why we did it. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no, don't apologise, John. So a quick question from Colin, or observation from Colin, on the concept of on the topic of burnout.
Yes.
Colin says, why do people always deny their stress when others observe and comment on their behaviours? So others can see it, and we don't see it.
That is a really good comment.
Mm.
Yeah. So Colin, really good comment, and you're right. What is mindfulness? Okay, so mindfulness is a lot of things to a lot of people. Often we think, well, what we just did is mindfulness, pause, stop, breathe. And that is a part of the mindful practice. But for me, the bigger part of the mindful practice is a thing called awareness. It's bringing in awareness to ourselves. It's learning to recognize how we're feeling, changes in our mood, in our body, physically. Bringing that level of awareness into us and having a practice of developing awareness allows us then to recognize when we're getting stressed. The people you're talking about, Colin, they're not aware. They're just simply not aware of how they're feeling. They've probably never done a practice that brings awareness to them. Stress is one of those things that builds up over time. It's a little bit like a frog jumping into hot water. If we jumped into boiling hot water, it would jump back out. But if it jumped into water that was like warmish, it would float around, and if you gradually increase the heat, it would boil to death and it wouldn't get out. Similar thing with stress. But what mindfulness is massively impactful is by developing awareness so that you recognize the signs within yourself when you're getting stressed. So I really appreciate that comment. That was really, really useful to be able to explain that, and I hope it helps. Mindful leaders. All right, guys, last one of the interactivity. You don't have to do any more chats after this. Please just let me know what you think a mindful leader is. Just a few seconds. Be interested to get your thoughts.
So we've got a leader, John, and everybody else. A leader who shows empathy and understanding is a mindful leader.
Love it. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Somebody who is aware of the effects of their behavior.
Brilliant. There's that awareness word. Yeah.
I'm Lydia, being aware of mental health issues someone in the workforce may be struggling with. So being aware of what others are going through. Yeah, understanding self and others from Malcolm. Thank you, Malcolm.
Brilliant.
Empathy, understanding, compassionate, supportive from Natasha. Ashley, thank you. Someone who adapts, that's very smart. Somebody who adapts to each person.
Wonderful, love it. Well, you know what? That absolutely blew me away, because that's so nice to know that you all feel instinctively what a mindful leader can be. And for me, yeah, I think there's nothing really to add there. I think that everything you've said is 100% where I'm at. The leaders that I love the most, that I put the extra effort in for, that I will, put the extra hours in, I'll work hours and not get paid for. They're the people who I know care about me. They genuinely care about how I feel. They want me to succeed. They're aware of their impact upon me. Have you ever had like a boss and you think, well, he's not a bad guy, but he says all these things and it really hurts? Not aware. Awareness is a massive part of mindfulness. To have a leader who is aware of their actions, aware of their impact, aware of how they're feeling, because their feelings are going to impact on us. To have a mindful leader is to have a leader that you will put in that extra energy for. A mindful leader will transmit these feelings throughout his team, his company. And imagine if the owners of the business were mindful. Imagine if every part of policy, if every decision, if every practice throughout that company was mindful, compassionate, aware, had the best interests of the staff at heart. That company would be a company that would be thriving out of COVID. People would be pulling together and fighting to move forward with positivity and love for each other, like a family. And that, for me, is what a mindful leader is. They're like your family. They put their arms around you and they make you want to be a part of that loving embrace. And a way that you can help somebody who's maybe new to mindfulness or sensations, or maybe not compassionate. I mean, everyone's compassionate, but maybe they're not aware of how to be compassionate. This exercise is a nice one. You can introduce it in workplaces, 100%. There's ways to do that. It's a very simple one, but it's just for me. It's really a practice just for you guys. So it's a nice one that I do, and just to check in with actually how am I feeling today, because we sometimes don't recognize that we're feeling, upset. Had an argument with somebody the night before, wake up in the morning, come to work, forgotten about it, still feeling bad, have a shout at somebody who messages you or something. So this is just great about building that awareness and connecting with our feelings. So, okay, we won't spend too long, just a minute or two. Take a second. I'd like you to keep your eyes open for this one. So take a second just to be calm and be still. Often when we're stressed, our eyes want to close anyway, because a lot of the stress starts to leave our body. And we start to notice, I'm relaxed, and your eyes go, there's a lot of energy involved with being stressed. But do try to keep your eyes open for this one. So I just want you to ask yourself for a second, how do I feel? And allow the answer to come up. That's nice. I'm feeling happy. I can feel that. Yeah, great. So accept the sensations, allow them to come up. If you're not feeling good, don't push it away. Just allow the feeling to be present. Investigate the feelings. So I said I'm feeling happy and I felt it there. So I would take my mind to that place. All right, how does it feel? Yeah, it feels a bit warm, a bit like butterflies. It's active. And notice how the feeling that you're concentrating on the feelings, how it's made you change. So I feel so happy. I feel so positive right now. I feel like just grinning. Just notice how connecting with those feelings has made you feel, how it's made you change. Why is that important to connect with your feelings? Well, because if you're aware of your feelings, you're aware of the impact upon your actions. And that's very important in the workplace, as you well know. Okay, I'm just checking the time. So we've got a little bit of time. So
John, as you've kindly done that, could I just quickly refer back to a couple of comments that came in?
Yes, of course.
From Karen and from Sol. That was saying that the mindful leader is an example, and they understand changes in other people's personality and behavior, and adapt to the changes and support and give direction where necessary. So that they have to be, I guess what you're saying is they have to be self-aware, following Karen's and Sol's point, in order to be aware of what others are going through.
Exactly, yeah. The mindful practice is about self-development. So the idea is that we can only be compassionate, truly be present and compassionate and aware, if we are doing that with ourselves. So that's the premise, and I 100% agree with you. We can all be compassionate without being completely aware, but it comes from a lot deeper place, a more authentic place, if we're practicing this ourselves and we're looking after ourselves. I know if I'm happier and more centered, then I connect with people far better. I won't dwell on this slide because I'd like to move on. There's a few little bits, but there's some information there, about the impact upon employee experience between a mindful modern leader and the traditional form of leadership. I think we're all aware of the benefits from the comments that are coming in, but it's just some information, some interesting stats there for people. Last one, intentional well-being. Okay, so there's a few things that companies can do, and one of the things is working with a company like Goodfoot. Another thing is developing the culture and practices, internally. We can have a mixture of the two things. What we're looking to promote here is this idea of having an assessment-based model, so that you look at what the current company is doing, where you can make improvements, having diagnostic tools to help you with that. So it's not just having a look and think, oh yeah, we could improve there. You're specifically measuring measuring certain levels of impact, getting feedback from employees and putting that through to a report that's easily digestible. Then looking to then implement the changes that are recommended as a result of that cultural assessment, and then measuring the results of that change. And I think that's very important within the well-being space, is to have an awareness of where you currently are at as a company, because you may think, yeah, we're doing everything great, perfect. But when you do the assessment, there may be areas that could be improved, and having that ongoing assessment is really important. We talked about this at length: leadership impact, ensuring that the people who are leading your teams, who are running the companies, who are driving the business, are embodying these qualities of mindfulness and well-being, so that this can translate throughout the whole company, throughout all the policy. Again, companies like Goodfoot can help with this, developing these qualities, helping work with leaders and teams to. But it's not about training, is it? Really, I don't see it as training. But it's more about helping people connect with themselves, and giving them a set of practices that are known to work. And then engagement and inclusivity of the employee, and bringing them on board so they become part of the experience. I'm rushing through a little bit just because I wanted to finish on this slide. So we've got at Goodfoot, we have developed a 7-webinar series which we've covered some of the topics: stress, burnout, resiliency, business recovery, developing happiness culture. You can see this on the slide. But what I wanted to just touch in here was that this 7-webinar series is really a precursor to us working with you further. Any one of those webinars are amazing experience in themselves. It's time with the experts in the fields of wellbeing, mindfulness, burnout, can help your company to address issues, develop practice, to develop policy, give you training, give staff training. You tell us exactly how you want us to frame those webinars, and we can do that. But more so than that is, we see this as the start of an ongoing relationship. Like we talked about before, we want to work with your company to develop this culture, to help work with you to develop leaders who are mindful. We want to work with you to be as happy as we are about the future with COVID, because I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to bring in change. So a lot of people think that this is a scary time, and it is, but it's also a great opportunity to change things. Working remotely as well is a fantastic way to bring teams together using mindfulness and compassion, because it's an individual practice, and as a team you can give people individual tools to bring them all together, and you can create that happiness culture remotely, as well as you can do in a workplace. In my opinion, even better than in a workplace, because people can practice by themselves, you know, in the comfort of their own home. So really what I'm trying to say here is that have a look through those 7. It'd be great for you to book onto 1, 2, 3, or all of them. Or if you think, well, actually that sounds quite interesting, book on 1, but maybe have a chat with us and say, well, you know, we've got this specific thing that we'd like you to work with. We can tailor it to work with you. And there's one last thing really that I wanted to say, is that we'd like to have a consultation with you if it's possible. If you think, actually, not sure about this, but wouldn't mind a further chat, then please book in for a consultation. It'd be nice just to chat through. John, I thought the presentation was really great, or not, and I'd like to talk to you about this subject. Then yeah, let's have half an hour and let's just run through a few ideas, because you know, Goodfoot is about building relationships, friendships, partnerships with companies, and about helping you. That's ultimately what we want to do. So I think I'll end there, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's any other comments, please do so. But I'll hand you back over to Mark now. Right, thanks.
Thanks, John, very, very much. So I'll put my video on. John, if you want to end your screen share for me, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll do.
And I just wanted to thank everybody so much for being around. What I suggest is there's 5 minutes to prepare for the next meeting or get another coffee or whatever. But we're really happy to hang around. So I'm going to unmute everybody. Please feel free to leave, or please feel free to switch on your videos and chat for a few minutes, or feel free to leave your video off and chat, whatever works for you. Thank you very much for the comments that are coming in now. Emma says thank you for setting her up for a good afternoon. Thank you from Claire. Appreciate it, Claire. From Karen, thank you. From John, thanks. Great session from John. Appreciate it, John. Thank you so much. Good to chat to you again, mate, actually. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and then if you wish to join in a chat, please hang around. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, John. For those who are still here, I'm going to stop the recording now. There we go.